So you want to know what's my thought on the Kyle Rittenhouse case? Was justice served? No, justice was not served. There's no way that this white boy should have been able to cross state line in possession of a weapon that he was not legally allowed to have in his own state, to come into another state and shoot and kill two people, wounding the third. Here you got this one white guy find three separate reasons to use deadly force that not one local authority, one local resident, one local business owner, none of them found any reason. This one white guy found three in one night. And then to use, you know, stand your ground to protect yourself as his defense. When you brought the trouble to the community, you taking this so seriously, you taking this more seriously than the residents. So nah, justice was not served. And here you had the judge in the court. He's supposed to be positioned in the middle between the prosecution and the defense, not supposed to be leaning one way or the other. He goes out of his way to make the prosecution describe the victims in the killing as looters and robbers. He wouldn't let the prosecution refer to them as victims. So he's putting his own definition on these people and won't allow nobody else to call them anything less. This is a travesty. But what are my thoughts on it? My thoughts are this: now that everything is done, so now the question is, what are you going to do? Now, I'm just a self-proclaimed leader of my people. But if I was a actual leader, where I had the support of Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson or Farrakhan, I wouldn't just be sitting back, waiting for the next opportunity for these fools to grab a weapon and shoot and kill. I would be proactive. I would encourage the parents of the victims to sue the state of Wisconsin for the deaths of their family members. Now, knowing full well that this lawsuit is going to fail, but it's going to set a precedent because the parent state that this boy resided from deemed him either too young, too immature to handle a weapon of a weapon of war, and because he can simply cross a state line, and now Wisconsin is going against the description of Kyle Rittenhouse. They saying that he can possess it here legally. Now you see, subsequently he killed two people and wounded a third. The parents should sue the state of Wisconsin, because that's like me setting standards and limitations to my children. They're not. I feel they're too young to do this. They're too young to do that. And then they go over to their brother house or their uncle house or their auntie house or whatever, and then they allow them to do over there what they're not allowed to do at home. And if something happened to them, either they hurt somebody else or get themselves hurt, they should be held accountable, because you should have recognized the limitations that the parent has set. And the state of Illinois, where he lived and resided from, said that this boy was ill-equipped to handle this weapon. And because Wisconsin ignored this, you have put in jeopardy people in another community that he don't know. See, he wouldn't use this weapon against in his own community, or be less likely to use a weapon like this in his own community where he know people. But when you go to another state where you don't know anybody, or don't have the same relationship there as you would at home, you're more likely to use that weapon. So I would mobilize the parents to sue the state of Wisconsin just to set a precedence to get the conversation going, so you won't have this loophole the other yahoos would use to do the same thing. It's just like the George Zimmerman case. All these so-called black leaders sat right back, got their little photo op, had their little speeches, and George Zimmerman walked. And then right after that, that spurred him on. He stayed in trouble, coming in with his wife, brandishing a weapon against other people. See, they should have passed laws that when George Zimmerman called 911, I'm just like I said, I'm just a self-proclaimed leader, but I love my people, and I'm gonna try to protect them not only from the current threat but from future threats. When George Zimmerman called 911, he was surrendering his authority to handle the situation. He was neither mentally or physically equipped to deal with it. And when he acted contradictory to what the advice that was all recorded on the conversation told him not to pursue Trayvon Martin, but because that wouldn't satisfy his bloodlust, he went and pursued Trayvon Martin anyway, got into a confrontation, then claimed stand your ground and killed Trayvon. Al Sharpton, instead of you studying over the case, doing your speeches, you should have been having Benjamin Crump and whoever else in your national non-action network passing a law stating that this guy called 911, and then if you do that, then you have to abide by the advice of the person on the other end of the phone. And if you do anything contradictory to that, and a death or violence occur, you will be held accountable. But see, when you don't think proactively and only think reactively, then the threat exists after the fact. And when you look at both the Kyle Rittenhouse case and the George Zimmerman case, and look at the attitudes and behaviors after the court, you should be able to use these actions, these statements, as if, because they wasn't displayed in the court. Kyle Rittenhouse is sitting up here just the other day. He been found not guilty of these charges. Sitting up here saying that after he shot and killed him, he was crying, he was throwing up, he was shaking, visibly shaking. You didn't testify to that in court. There was no physical evidence of that in court. You wouldn't have said you didn't stand on the witness stand and say that. You know. So when did you have this recollection? Because you trying to get your narrative out. George Zimmerman, the same thing. Soon as the case was over, you see him smirking in the court because he didn't have to take the stand. And then you see how aggressive he was after the case. This should have been presented after the fact. They should have been able to reinstate the charges based on this behavior after the court date. Because this is what you have to do. You have to be proactive, and you have to be creative. You cannot just continue using the same tactics and strategies that has failed our people, left them just as vulnerable as they are, and think that we're supposed to feel comfortable in any aspect of our lives. If this case or the after effect of this case doesn't change anything, it should at least change the leadership that black people go to. Because what are they actually doing? Where's the laws? And then if you take this video and you send it to them and say, well, why don't you do what this guy say do? They'll reject it. You know why? Because it didn't come from them, and it's going to stop or reduce the ability of these white devils from doing what they're doing. And they make their money off off these white people picking off blacks. And they're using the same tactics and strategies, the character assassination that they do for black people. They use this against their own people to label these people victims or label them criminals and looters, and you know, this is the same character assassination they do against black people, and they used against their own. And we see that we see these people not stopping, and we cannot keep doing the same thing. I mean, if I'm wrong, then just tell me where I'm wrong at. Otherwise, we got to change, or nothing will change. So, now, what was your next question?